Good afternoon, sir. This is my PowerPoint presentation explaining the assessment. Let's begin. There's This is the content of my PowerPoint presentation: Assessment 1, Assessment 2, Assessment 3, Assessment 4, and Assessment 5. Let's begin. Assessment 1. Why is form handling and validation important in web development, particularly in terms of data integrity and security? Form handling and validation are crucial for data integrity. It ensures that data submitted adheres to predefined rules, predefining invalid or incomplete data from stored or processed. Security protects against malicious attacks such as SQL injection, cross-site scripting, or XSS, or invalid file uploads by sanitizing and validating user input. User experience provides immediate feedback to users about errors in their submission, enabling them to correct issues before submitting the form. Without proper validation, application may process incorrect data or become vulnerable to exploitation. Next question. What are some key Laravel features that help prevent security vulnerabilities such as SQL injection and cross-site request forgery or CSRF when handling the data? Laravel offers several built-in features to secure applications like SQL injection prevention. Laravel Eloquent ORM and query builders use parameterized queries automatically escaping input to prevent SQL injection. CSRF protection. Laravel generates a CSRF token for every user session. By including the CSRF directly in forms, Laravel ensures the request came from authenticated sources. Validation rules. Laravel's validation system checks inputs against a set of predefined rules to ensure they meet expected formats and constraints. Mass assignment protection. Laravel uses the fillable and guarded properties to control which fields are mass assignable. Sanitation. Laravel's helper methods such as HTML special chars and escaping directives like curly braces prevent XSS attacks. Then, how would you create a basic form in Laravel using a blade template and handle its submission in a controller? Step 1. Define a form in a blade template. This is the code for the blade templates for action. Then, gumamit po siya ng CSRF for protection. And label niya, name ng form. Then, step 2, define a route. Here's the code for route. Then, route post form submit, form controller class submit, name form.submit. Then, step 3, handle submission in a controller. Here's the code for the handle submission in a controller. Yan po, public function submit, request validated equals request validate. then name, email, then next question. How can customizing validation errors message improve the user experience in a web application? Customizing validation errors message improve user experience by making error feedback clear, helpful, and relevant. Instead of generic message, custom one tells user exactly what went wrong and how to fix it. For example, instead of saying invalid input, a custom message like please enter a valid email address such as at userexample.com helps the user correct mistake easily. This reduces frustration, build trust, and ensures a smoother interaction with the application. Here's the example, sir. If the user submit the file form without filling the fields, they'll see, please provide your name. We need your email address to contact you. If the email address is invalid, as you can see sa code, please provide your name. We need your email address to contact you. Then, please enter a valid email address like user at example.com. This clear and specific message guides the user to correct their input, improving the overall experience. Next. What are the benefits of centralizing validation logic in Laravel application, and how does this contribute to the maintainability of the web application? Benefits of centralized logic is reusability, consistency, scalability, and ease of testing. Sa reusability, validation rules can be reused across different parts of the application, reducing code duplication. Consistency ensures that data integrity checks are uniform through the application. Scalability, centralized logic simplifies adding or updating validation rules without needing to modify multiple controllers. Ease of testing, it makes it easier to test validation logic independently. Implementation example, centralized validation logic using form request classes. This one, in controller, public function submit. The request is already validated. This approach keeps the validation rules separate from the controller, improving maintainability. Then, in the store form request class, classes form request extend from the request public function rules. Yan, as you can see. Proceed sa next question. Assessment 2. What is the role of middleware in Laravel's authentication system, and how does it help protect routes and resources from unauthorized access? Middleware in Laravel acts as filtering mechanism that protects incoming HTTP requests before they reach the application logic, controllers, routes, etc. In Laravel's authentication system, middleware plays a critical role in controlling access to specific routes or resources based on user authentication and permissions. How middleware protects routes and resources? Ensures authentication. Laravel provides an auth middleware to check if a user is logged in. If the user is not authenticated, They are redirected to a login page or an unauthorized response to return for APIs. Restricts access based on roles or permission. Middleware are enforce role-based or permission-based access to ensure only authorized user can access certain routes. For example, an admin middleware might ensure only administrators can access the admin dashboard. Reduce boilerplate code. Instead of manually checking user authentication or roles in every controller, middleware centralize this logic, making the codes cleaner and easier to maintain. Protect sensitive resources. Middleware ensures that resources such as API, endpoints, dashboard, and management tools are not accessible to unauthorized users. Next question. How does Laravel built-in authentication system handle user registration and login, including the management of session tokens and the validation of input data? The Laravel built-in authentication system streamline user regeneration and login process, handling input validation session management and token generation securely and efficiently. Here's the overview of how Laravel manages the task. User registration. Laravel validates input data to ensure meets requirements. Example, valid email, password, strength. Passwords are securely hashed before storing in the database. A new user record is created and the user can optionally be logged in automatically. Session management. Laravel stores session tokens to identify authenticated user across requests. Session tokens expired based on the configured session lifetime. CSRF tokens protects form from cross-site request forgery attack. User login. The system validates login credentials. If valid, the auth attempt method authenticates the user by checking the database. A session token is generated to maintain the user's login status. Validation of input data. Input data, example email, password is checked against predefined roles. Errors are returned to users with clear, customizable message for corrections. Laravel Breeze and Jetstream. These starter kits provide pre-built user registration, login, and session management feature, making the authentication set up quick and easy. Explain the importance of security measures like SQL injection prevention and XSS protection in login and registration form. How does Laravel assist the preventing vulnerabilities? The importance of security measures. SQL prevention. SQL injection occurs when malicious SQL code is inserted into a query to access, modify, or delete database data. In login registration forms, this can allow attackers to bypass authentication or access sensitive user data. Preventing SQL injection ensures the integrity and confidentiality of the database. Cross-site scripting or XSS protection. XSS occurs when attackers inject malicious script into web pages, which are then executed in users' browsers. In login and registration forms, XSS can compromise user sessions, steal sensitive information, or deliver malware. Protecting against XSS ensures that the user data and interactions are secure. How Laravel prevents these vulnerabilities? SQL injection and prevention. Prepared statements, Laravel, Eloquent, ORM, and Query Builder automatically use prepared statements which escape user input to prevent malicious SQL executions. Validation. Laravel validates input data, ensuring only expected data types or formats are processed. XSS protection. Escaping output. Laravel's blade templating engine automatically escapes output by default, preventing malicious script from being executed in the browser. Sanitizing input. Additional validation and sanitation rules ensures that user input does not contain harmful scripts. In terms of scalability, how can Laravel's authentication system be adapted to handle growing number of users' requests? Give example like session management or token-based authentication. As your application scales and the number of users and requests increase, Laravel's authentication system can be adapted to handle higher traffic and ensure smooth performance. Here are key strategies for scaling Laravel's authentication system. Session management. When using session-based authentication, managing session data becomes crucial as the number of users grows. Laravel provides several features to scale session management. Database session driver. For large number of users, storing sessions in the database ensures the session data is persistent across multiple servers and help manage session efficiently in a distributed environment. Laravel can be configured to use the database session driver by setting the config session.php file. Example, php driver env session driver database. Ito po yung code. Session expiration and garbage collection. You can configure session expiration to limit the number of sessions stored, reducing database overhead. Laravel session garbage collection cleans up expired session automatically. Token-based authentication or API scaling for APIs when scaling for mobile and external client. Token-based authentication such as JWT or Laravel Passport is highly scalable. JWT authentication. JWT or JSON Web Tokens are particularly choice for stateless authentication where tokens are stored in the client side. Example in cookies or local storage. Tokens are passed with the request to authenticate the user without needing to maintain session state or on the server. Laravel support JWT authentication through packages like Daemon or JWT Auth, which allows the API authenticate the user and scale without relying on session storage. Example, the client sends a JWT token in the authentication header for each API request and the server verifies the token's validity. Laravel Passport. Laravel Passport provides a full auth to server implementation for API authentication, which is useful for large-scale application needing secure API access. Passport uses access token to authenticate API requests, and its built-in features in token expiration and revocation help secure and scale your application. Example, after logging in, the user gets an access token which used for subsequent API's request without session state. Caching for faster authentication. As the number of users grows, authenticating users on every request can be resource intensive. To improve performance, cache user authentication data. Cache authenticate user data such as user roles or permission to reduce database queries and improve performance. Laravel support caching with various drivers like file database, Redis, or Memcache. Example, cache that put user ID, user, now, add minutes. Cache session data. For large-scale application sessions, data can be cached using Redis, which is highly performant for large volume of session requests. Load balancing and horizontal scaling. Session persistent in distributing system. In a load balance environment where multiple servers handle requests, Laravel can use a shared session driver to ensure session persistence across all instances. Redis is particularly efficient for scaling authentication across multiple servers, reducing latency and ensuring the users main logged in across requests. Stateless authentication. In microservices architecture or which an increased number of external services, JWT or auth tokens reduce the need for maintaining session state across multiple services, leading to more scalable stateless approach. Rate limiting. As the number of requests increase, implementing rate limiting ensures that the application can handle traffic spikes without degrading performance. Laravel provides built-in rate limiting through middleware to control the number of requests a user can make with a time window. Assessment 3. What are the key steps involved in implementing the create operation in Laravel, and how blade views and form handling play a role in this process? Implementing the create operation in Laravel involves several steps. First, you need to define routes in the routes or web.php file, where one route displays form create method and another handles form submission store method. Next, you create a controller using a PHP artisan make controller command and define the create method to return the view and the store method to handle form validation and data insertion into the database. In the store method, you validate the input using Laravel's validate function and then save the data to the database using create method of the model. The create must have fillable property to allow you mass assignment for specific fields. To display the form, you create a blade view file where you define HTML structures for the form. The form must include input fields, a CSRF, directive for security, and submit button. Blades at error directive and old helper can be used to display validation errors and retrain submitted values. You also need to ensure the database table to prepared by creating and running a migration. The migration defines the schema for the table which stores the data submitted through the form. Blades views and form handling are essentials in the process. Blade view simplify rendering dynamic content and layouts, while form handling ensures secure and user-friendly data collection. By following the step, you can successfully implement the create operation in Laravel. Yan po. As you can see, define routes. Here's the codes in routes. Yung makikita sa web. create a controller. Then these are the codes for controllers. Proceed tayo sa next. Define the model and create a blade view. Ito po yung laman ng blade view. As you can see, create resource. Yan po. Store mesh resource.store. Method nyo po, post. Yan po. Ito po yung CSRF token. Yan po. Then, under validation errors, continuation po to ng code sa number 4. Database configuration ensures the database table is ready. Use migration for defining the schema. Ito po yung need migrate. ID, yung string, text, tsaka timestamp. Yun po yung magiging naman ng table sa database pag na-migrate. Explain the importance of data validation and sanitation in CRUD operation. How does Laravel ensure security when handling user input during these operations? Importance of data validation and sanitation in CRUD operation. In any application dealing the CRUD, create, read, update, delete operations, data validation and sanitation are critical to ensure data integrity. Validation ensures that the data conforms to the expected format, preventing incorrect or malformed data from corrupting the database. Security. Sanitation removes malicious input such as SQL injection or cross-site scripting or XSS, protecting the application and its user. User experience. Prompt validation errors guide users to provide the correct data, enhancing usability. Performance. Preventing invalid data from entering the system, reducing the need for costly cleanup operation later. Compliance. Many regulation like GDPR or HIPAA require secure handling of data, including ensuring input integrity. How Laravel ensures security when handling user input. Laravel provides a variety of features to ensure security during CRUD operation. Validation. Laravel offers a robust validation mechanism via validator class or requires validation method. For example, PHP validated request validate name, email, password. This ensures only valid data processed to the database or other processes. Sanitation. While Laravel focuses primarily on validation, developers can use helper function like filter, _var, or packages like Laravel Sanitize for sanitation. For instance, timing inputs escaping special characters. Protection against SQL injection. Laravel's eloquent ORM and query builder use parameterized queries to automatically bind values, preventing SQL injection attacks. For example, users where email request input email first. So, cross-site scripting prevention. By default, blade templating escaping output using variable to prevent XSS. For example, div user name used for explicit and escapable output but only with sanitized input. CSRF protection. A Laravel includes CSRF tokens in forms automatically via CSRF, protecting against cross-site request forgery attack. For example, for method post action submit at CSRF, input type text name equals name, button type submit, Yan. Mass assignment protection. Larables prevent unauthorized attribute assignment by requiring developers to define fillable or guarded properties in eloquent models. Example, PHP protected fillable equals name, email, only can be a mass assigned. Custom middleware. Developers can create middlewares to further sanitize or validate inputs globally. Validation error handling. Laravel automatically redirects users back to the previous page with validation errors message, ensuring the application communicates issues effectively without exposing vulnerability. By combining these features, Laravel ensures that the user input are validated, sanitized, and handled securely in CRUD operations. Next question. Describe how would you implement the read operation in Laravel to retrieve and display data from the database using both a controller method and a blade view. The read operation involves retrieving data from the database and displaying it to the user. To implement this operation in Laravel, define a route in web.php to point the controller method, such as item controller at index, where you can retrieve data using eloquent. Example, item all, and pass it to the blade view using the item index compact items. In the blade views, iterate through the data using at for each to display it in the structure format, such as table, with optional support for pagination if needed using paginate, and links. Below is the step-by-step guide for implementing the operation using the controller method and the blade view. 1. Set up route. Define route in the routes at web to handle the request for the data. Yung route, get items, item controller, class index, name, items.index. Here, item in the URL path, item controller at index points to the index method in the item controller. The route name items.index can be used in blade views for linking. Step 2, create a controller. Generate a controller using artisan if it doesn't exist. Right? Bash pitch partition artisan make controller item controller. In the controller, implement the index method, fetch the data. Yan po yung ilalagay sa controller. Retrieve all items for the database. Item all, using pagination with paginate for larger data sets. Pass the data on a blade view, return view item.index compact items. Then create a blade view file for displaying the data, for example in sources, views, items, index, blade.php. Here's the HTML code for creating a blade view. And proceed tayo. Optional, add pagination for large. Replace item all with item paginate 10 in the controller. Items, item, paginate in the blade view, and pagination links. Like items links, ensure pagination styles are included by using. Next question. What is the purpose of the update operation in Laravel, and how would you handle the submission to modify existing data entries in the Laravel? Purpose of the update operation in Laravel. The update operation in Laravel allows you to modify existing records in the database. It is essential for maintaining up-to-date information, correcting errors, and accommodating changes over time. This operation typically involves fetching an existing record, displaying it in a form for the user to edit, validating the input, and saving the update data back to the database. Handling from submission for updating database. Here's how to handle form submissions to update existing database entries. Set up rules. Step 1. Defining the necessary routes in routes or web.php uses two routes for displaying the edit form and the other for processing the form submission. Here's the code in routes. Routes get item ID / edit item controller class edit name items dot edit. Then same process as under but items dot update for updating. Create controller method. In the item controller, implement edit and update methods. At edit methods, display the form. This method fetching existing records. Then sabihin niya po is update. Number 3, create the edit form. In resources, views item edit.play.php, create a form to allow users to edit the data. This is the HTML codes for creating edit form. Yun po. Method ng action, post. Continue tayo. Step 4, database update with mass assignment. To allow updates to define the fillable property in the items, model to specify which fields can be mass assigned. Example codes: protected, fillable, name, description, and price. Step 5, user feedback. After a successful update, redirecting to user list detail view with a success message. Here, return direct route items that indicate which success item updated successfully. How can you ensure that the delete operation Laravel is secure and prevents accidental or unauthorized data removal? What role does validation play in this process? The delete operation is critical as it involves permanently removal of data from the database. To ensure it is secured and prevents accidental or unauthorized action, the following processes are essential. Authorization. Use Laravel authorization policies or middleware like Gate or can to restrict access to only authorized user. Example, using a policy. Public function destroy user items, return user ID or items user ID. In the controller, public function destroy item find or fail ID. Disauthorized destroy the item, then item delete. Then return redirect route items that index with success item deleted successfully. CSRF protection. Protect deletion form or links with CRF tokens to ensure requests from the legitimate user. Example, form action route items that destroy item ID, method post at CSRF at method delete, button type submit delete. Laravel automatically verifies CRF token for all incoming requests. Soft deletes uses Laravel soft deletes to prevent removal data, allowing recovery of necessary, and use soft delete to your model. PHP class item extend model use soft deletes. Add a delete at column to your table. PHP Sun migration add delete at to your item table. Then codes, schema table function table soft delete. To restore a soft delete record item with trash find ID restore. Confirmation dialogues. Implement permission dialogues in the UI to prevent accidental deletion. For example, with JavaScript, form action route item destroy method post on submit, then 5. Validation. Although the delete operation doesn't require traditional validation like it for inputs, validation is essential for ensuring the record exists before deletion. The user is authorized to delete the record, policy, or middleware. The request includes necessary data such as a valid identifier for the record. Here's the example codes. 10. 6. Logging and monitoring. Log deletion action to track what data was deleted when and by whom. 7. Rate limiting throttling. Implement rate limiting to prevent mass deletion from malicious actors. Uses Laravel's built-in throttling middleware. To make it short, to ensure secure deletion in Laravel, enforce authorization to restrict who can delete, use CRF tokens to verify legitimate requests, implement soft delete for reversible action, use confirmation dialogues to prevent accidents, validate the record existence and request parameters, log deletion action for accountability, and use rate limiting to prevent abuse. Validation. In this context, plays a role ensuring the record exists, the user has the appropriate permission, and the deletion request is legitimate and complete. Assessment 4. What is the purpose of Google reCAPTCHA and how it is enhanced the security of web application when integrated with forms? Google reCAPTCHA is a security service designed to protect websites from automated bots. Its primary goal is to ensure that actions such as form submission, accounts login, or registration are performed by human users rather than malicious automated system. How Google reCAPTCHA enhances web application security, prevents automated attacks, stop bots from performing brute force attacks such as attempting multiple logins or credential stuffing by requiring verification for human presence. Block spam, protects form from being flooded with spam content by ensuring only legitimate user can submit them. Mitigates abuse, safeguards features like registration form, pulse, and feedback system for being exploited for fraudulent or malicious activities by bots. Reduces DDoS attack vectors, limiting bots from overwhelming specific endpoints which can degrade application performance. Enhances resources allocation, ensuring that application resources like free trials or download are accessed by real users, preventing automated bots from exhausting them. Improve user experience. Versions like reCAPTCHA version 3 work invisibly in the background, accessing users' behavior without disturbing the flow of genuine users. Describe the process of obtaining registration reCAPTCHA site and secret keys from Google. Why is it important to update domain? The obtain reCAPTCHA site and secret keys, visit Google reCAPTCHA admin console, sign in with Google account, and register your application by providing a label, selecting a reCAPTCHA version, and specifying the allowed domains, example localhost or your production domain. Once registered, Google generates a site key for front-end and secret key for back-end validation. Updating the domain from localhost to the production domain is crucial because Google verifies reCAPTCHA requests against the registered domains. Using the incorrect domains can result to validation failures, preventing reCAPTCHA from functioning correctly in the production environment. How would you integrate reCAPTCHA into Laravel form? Outline step from installing necessary package to adding reCAPTCHA field in the form. To integrate reCAPTCHA from Laravel form, first install Ashkobo no CAPTCHA package using Composer. Add the reCAPTCHA site and secret keys to the env file. Optionally publish the package configuration for customization in your Blade template. Include no CAPTCHA render.js and no CAPTCHA display to render reCAPTCHA widgets. Validate the reCAPTCHA response in your controller using request. Validate reCAPTCHA response required reCAPTCHA. Finally, test the form to ensure reCAPTCHA is displayed correctly. Explain how to validate reCAPTCHA response in Laravel. What role do reCAPTCHA secret keys play in the validation process? To validate reCAPTCHA responses in Laravel includes the gReCAPTCHA response field in your form and use the CAPTCHA validation rule provided by the Ashkobo no CAPTCHA package. In your controller, call request validate reCAPTCHA response required reCAPTCHA to ensure reCAPTCHA response is present and valid. The reCAPTCHA secret key plays a crucial role in process allowing the server communicate surely with Google's reCAPTCHA API. During validation, the server sends the user's reCAPTCHA response token and your secret key to APIs. Google verify the token against the registered domain and secret key, confirming whether the request is legitimate. How can customizing error message for failed reCAPTCHA attempts improve user experience? Provide example of how you would handle reCAPTCHA errors in the Laravel controller. Customizing errors message or failed reCAPTCHA attempts improve user experience by providing clear, user-friendly feedback instead of generic errors. For example, instead of validation failed, users can say please verify you're not a robot. As you can see, example in Laravel controller, request validate the reCAPTCHA response required reCAPTCHA, and the reCAPTCHA response that required please complete reCAPTCHA to proceed. Then if failed CAPTCHA verification failed, please try again. Then assessment 5. What is the purpose of integrating OTP functional into Laravel application and how does it enhance security for users? Integrating OTP or one-time password functionality in the Laravel application provides an additional layer of authentication. OTPs are temporary single-use codes sent to user via SMS, email, or authenticator apps, often used for verifying logins, sensitive actions, or account registration. How OTP enhances security? By two-factor authentication or 2FA, OTPs add a second verification step ensuring access required, something the user knows password, and something they have OTP. Mitigate password breaches. Even if a password compromise, OTP prevent unauthorized access without the addition code. Reduces risk of phishing and key logging. Attackers who can steal password cannot bypass OTP-based verification. Prevents account abuse. OTPs ensure sensitive actions like password resets, payments, or profile updates, ensuring the rightful owner approves them. Temporary validity. OTPs expire quickly, reducing the risk of reuse or interception. By integrating OTP functionality, Laravel application improves user trust, secure sensitive operation, and safeguard against unauthorized access. Describe the process of generating and sending OTP via email in Laravel. What configuration steps are needed in that environment file to set email functionality. Configuration step for email in the env file. Set up email driver in env. Typically SMTP, sending emails via SMTP server. Example, mail underscore mailer equals SMTP. SMTP server configuration. Add the necessary SMTP credential for email provider using Gmail, Mailgun, or SES. Example for Gmail. Makikita po sa env itong mail host, port, username, password, encryption, from form address, and form name. Step 3. Verify mail configuration. Ensure that the email configuration is correctly set up by testing the email functionality with a simple mail row test. By completing this step, you will able to generate an OTP via email in Laravel application. And process of generating sending OTP in Laravel. Generating OTP. You can generate one-time password OTP using random function or the package like strrandom. Example, OTP calls rand 100,000 to 999. Generate random digit. Store OTP. Store the OTP in a database or session associating with the user. Verification. Send OTP via email. Uses Laravel mail facade to send the OTP to the user's email address. Example, mail to user email, send new OTP mail. Create OTP mail mailable. Create a mailable class to format the OTP email like PHP artisan make OTP email. Then inside the OTP email, put this code. Public function build this view email.otp with OTP. Then explain how can integrated an MS OTP service using Twilio in Laravel. What configuration are required in the env file and the controller to send OTP via SMS. To integrate SMS OTP with Twilio in Laravel, first install the Twilio SDK by running Composer. Record Twilio SDK. Then in the env file, add your Twilio SID, auth token, and phone number. Next, update the configure services.php file to include Twilio SID, token, and phone number in your controller. Generate a random OTP, store it in a session, and use Twilio's client to send OTP via SMS to the user's phone. Finally, test the integration to ensure OTP is correct. What I read is in the picture. In-explain ko lang po. Then, continue tayo. How can you handle OTP verification in Laravel? Describe the process of validating OTP and necessary step to handle success or failure in the validation. Here are steps for OTP verification in Laravel. Store OTP, generate and store the OTP in a session or database. Create an OTP input form. Build a form in a user to enter the OTP. Validate OTP. The controller validate the OTP input against the stored OTP. Check expiry. Optional, ensures the OTP has not expired. Then 5. Handle successfully or failure if the OTP matches redirect with successful, if not return to the error image. To handle OTP verification in Laravel, stored then na po. Then, what are some key customization options available when handling OTP, such as error message or retry attempts, and how they can improve the user experience? Key customization option for handling OTPs in Laravel include custom error message. You can customize error message to provide clearer, user-friendly feedback such as OTP you entered is incorrect, please try again. Improves the user experience by being specific and less technical. As you can see. Then, as you can see sa code, ito po, invalid OTP, please check and try again. Then, retry attempts limit to prevent abuse or brute force attempt for the limit of the number OTP retries within a specific time rate. Example, restrict users to 3 attempts within 10 minutes. 3. OTP expiry time. You can set expiry time OTP to ensure they are valid only for a short period, 5 or 10 minutes. Custom retry timer. After failed OTP attempt, you can show countdown or delay before users can try again, reducing immediate retry attempts. OTP resend limit. You can limit how often a user can request OTP, preventing spam or unnecessary requests. How this customization improve users' experience? Clear error message provides users with specific feedback on what went wrong, reducing frustration. Retry limits prevent abuse while giving user enough chances to succeed. OTP expiry ensures that OTP are only valid for short time, enhancing security and usability. Custom retry timer helps manage the retries without overwhelming users while maintaining security. Then, OTP resend limit prevents user for spamming requests and ensures the system remains secure. This customization enhances user experience by providing clear guidance, reducing frustration, and maintaining security without being overly restrictive. And that's all for my presentation. Thank you.